There are an awful lot of genres in the video game world. Roleplay games, MMOs, platformers, FPS, survival games, horror games, adventure games, etc, etc. But mainly there are two different types of games: single player games and multiplayer games. And games usually apply to one or the other, only a few exceptions for both. But today, we're talking about the shooter game Plants vs Zombies Garden Warfare 2, and why this has the best single player experience on a multiplayer shooter. Shooter games are almost exclusively multiplayer oriented. You know, the Call of Duties, Overwatch, PUBG, Fortnite, Team Fortress 2 even, all of them centre around multiplayer. These games, although there are exceptions in the genre, have single player problems. They're just not very good for single player. Now, a reason a game should usually cater something towards single player is because a lot of people have poor internet connections. Or it's just that the players that actually play them somehow gain a huge intellect as soon as they start playing it, and they know everything about the game. Sometimes the game's not fun playing with other people. So sometimes it's easy just to have bots. Now, it's definitely common for these type of games to provide a single player experience, usually in the form of a custom game. However, this doesn't hold a full experience for the player, merely just something imitating the main premise of the game or the main selling point of the game. There's no rewards for playing, and there's no sense of progression. Or some of them have a campaign. Call of Duty have developed their campaign for quite a while. Although I haven't played the latest two, it seems like they're going in the right direction. And of course, there are the shooter games that provide specifically for the experience of single player, like Borderlands. It's completely single player and it does well. Although it does well, it doesn't provide the same entertainment or the same value as the multiplayer shooter games. So let me explain why Garden Warfare provides an experience like no other. Now, straight off the bat, this game makes it very clear that every opportunity that you have to face off against a bot, it will give you XP and currency and reward you for fighting them. And it even throws this in your face. Instead of giving the player a main selection screen, it actually gives you a hub straight away where you can get right into the action. And it's effectively no man's land where whichever side you're on, all you have to do is fight. There's no specific objective that you have to do, all you have to do is fight. It can be done for XP grinding, or it can be for currency, whichever you choose. This is already a brilliant way to get people into the game without dealing with other players. Another thing that this hub area does is it gives you collectibles that give you currency. Now, collectibles aren't exactly something you'd associate with this type of game, but if it gets you out into that open environment and gets you practicing, I think it's worth it. Also, it's not too invasive. You're not stuck at a certain progression until you find these. Additionally, some of these collectibles allow you to customize your own base. This provides a unique experience, although not too much of a unique experience. Another thing that allows grinding to be just that much easier is the daily tasks. These daily tasks can give you currency as well as throw you out there. It can be something as simple as defeat 100 zombies as any sunflower plant, like the goal I am currently doing now. I don't have to do this in multiplayer or on any other specific online part of the game. It can be done here, and all of these kills are filling up the quest meter. So with all these things that are pulling you into the hub, there are more things, believe it or not. One of the things that it gives is a admittedly very loose basis of a campaign, mostly to get older players familiar with the new characters. So for all the good the hub does, it's not really a basis for a game. Although it's fun, there's nothing really to keep you going after this gets boring. Obviously, being in the same place, in the same map, can get very boring. Luckily, this is where their custom game function comes in. most custom games provide nothing more than the normal game mode plus bots, with varying degrees of difficulty. This does the same thing, plus the ability to not just level up, but earn currency. This is something no game offers, because how do you make it fair and not a farm of XP and currency? So to balance this, they raise and lower the money or the multiplication of that said money depending on the settings, and the settings depend on the difficulty, and also you can have bonus additions like low gravity, which actually reduce it to 0, which I can understand because that also kind of seems cheating and isn't in the base game. So already this is incentive enough. The game is selling this to you specifically. This is one of the main premises of the game, and you can do it completely in single player. Oh, and those daily tasks that I mentioned ages ago, well, there are multiplayer ones that you specifically have to do in multiplayer. Oh, and those daily tasks that I mentioned earlier, well, there is a specific section exclusively for multiplayer, except that doesn't mean you have to be online to do it. You can do it in this game mode as well, as this also classes as the multiplayer portal. Therefore, it's just another thing that you don't have to do with other people. Now, I'll be honest, there are a few problems, but I'll get to them towards the end. Now, personally, I think everything that this offers you is already better than any other multiplayer single player mode you can get. Mostly because it's kind of infinite, there's no definitive ending like there is with a campaign, and also there's an incentive for you to play custom games on your own if it's something that tickles your fancy. However, they go one step further. At the end of the day, the original game, the one on mobile devices that we're all used to, is a tower defense game. And something that they brought over from the first game is garden ops, or indeed graveyard ops if you want to be a zombie. And what this is they throw 4 players into a map, you choose your garden or graveyard, and then you have to defend your garden or graveyard from 10 oncoming waves of the opposite force. Now in the first game, you had to be online to do this. You could do it single player, and it was the only single player that game had. However, if you are on your own, you're not getting to the end unless you're absolutely crazy at the game. I could never get to the end on my own because I am not good at games. I'm sure this is well established. However, this game completely improved upon that. You can take any ally character that you own, so say a fire plant or a toxic zombie, and use them as AI that will fight with you. And actually, they're quite competent AI, because I know that I am not competent as a player, so for me to be able to get to the end is a huge advantage. And honestly, I think it makes the experience a lot better. Like the other 2 game modes, you can obviously have XP and currency. So all this is absolutely amazing. It's something that doesn't get added to other multiplayer games because they focus on just the multiplayer audience. And I'll be honest, I'm not surprised. I understand that it's a massive audience as it is, and that people that don't play online is an underwhelming minority and will usually just play single player games, which is usually what I do. However, I've always loved games like this. I've always loved shooter games. I'm just terrible at them. Now, the only real downsides of this only comes from the experience you get from a multiplayer game. So to explain, I need to understand what a multiplayer game thrives on. And what they thrive on is the experience of randomness and randomness of the player. Players can kind of do what they like in these kind of games. They can choose their weapons, they can choose whatever tactics they want. Even if they're grouped up, they can all communicate in an orderly fashion, which is something that is completely unique to multiplayer experiences, something you can't get on single player. And why this thrives so well is it makes each experience, each game, each map completely unique. It's a unique game every time, because you're never going to have the same combination of people, do the same combination of things every time. And that's what these games work so well off. It's why certain things work and certain things don't. There's a little bit of gameplay mechanics, as in certain weapons being too overpowered and certain maps creating bottlenecks that make it hard for the opposition to win. However, that is something that the developers can work on. What they can't work on is creating an AI that can replicate human thought and speech. So now I'm going to suggest things that could help. Bear in mind, I am not a developer. I know nothing about if this is even possible. So please don't be angry at me and take everything with a grain of salt. So one way for this game specifically that could improve the AI is randomize the characters each time they respawn. Now again, I don't know if this was possible, but keep each AI as a single plant. For example, let's say we've got 4 AI and there are the 4 base classes. Now in those classes, you can randomize which type of plant they are. So let's see the pea shooter, it always stays a pea shooter. Sometimes it could be the fire pea shooter, or it could be the rock pea shooter. Is that one from the game? I don't know. It could change between those each time it dies. That means every situation, everything that you can encounter is a random combination of events that you can't predict. Now, the last thing I can think that could be randomized, which I think Call of Duty have done for a bit, but wasn't in this game, is random difficulties. So to make the game kind of truly random and kind of a different experience each time, each AI player will be randomized to a different difficulty. So instead of the difficulties, the 4 different difficulties in this game being evenly split between each of the characters, it can be truly randomized. So say you've got 4 players, 1 match, 2 of them could be randomized to easy and the other 2 could be randomized to crazy. I believe that's how you say it. And then the next match, it would be completely different. Maybe all 4 of them could be set to medium, or maybe only 3 of them are set to medium. I think that's called normal. And then the last one be either easy or completely crazy. And that would be something that would make each time you play the game actually random. It's not perfect. It doesn't have the randomness that a human could have, but it's close enough to make the experience different every time. Instead of knowing you can go into an easy match and win, or go into a crazy match and win, it increases the spontaneity of the game, making each match truly unique like none before. Some matches would be easy to win, some matches would be harder to win, and I think that's something that could take effect. I don't know. I'd love to see more stuff like this be created. Oh, and the final problem is loot boxes. Of course, I hate loot boxes, they are the devil, but I have to admit they were done better in the first game. Upon every level up, you'd get another piece or another item of that character. This made it feel like you were more progressing to get somewhere rather than just having to grind for currency. But I have to admit, this is way better than the third game. So to conclude, this is my personal best experience I've had in a multiplayer game on my own. Hopefully more games somewhere can offer this kind of as a casual option, and this can actually be developed into something good. I know that the multiplayer is the main focus, but you know, sometimes it's fun to play by yourself. If there's a game that actually offers something similar to this, or even better you'd argue, put it in the comments. I'm interested to play games. I like playing games. If you did like the video, then thank you. And until the next one, goodbye.